Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, August 30th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. So first off, there's a historical event, the encyclical issued on August 30th, 1884, by Pope Leo XIII. It's called Superiore Anno, and it's on the recitation of the Rosary. Very interesting there, recommended read, Superiore Anno. In Martinique, we're told that by the Abbot Orsini that they celebrate Notre Dame de la Délivrance, Our Lady of the Deliverance. We'll come back to that. And also, the Abbot Orsini tells us they celebrate Our Lady of Carqueire on the River Douro in Portugal. We're told that Egas de Moniz, the tutor of St. Alphonsus I, carried the young priest into this ancient church of the Blessed Virgin so that his legs might be straightened through her intercession, which took place, right? So we're going to jump back. Again, the abbot said that they celebrate Notre Dame de la Délivrance, or Délivrande, in Montrouge, Saint-Pierre, in Martinique. And so the origin of this shrine goes back to this. In 1851, Étienne Jean-François Le Chapier, rector of the pilgrimage sign of Notre Dame de la Délivrance in Douai, Normandy, so he was already at the Church of Our Lady of the Deliverance in Normandy, became the first Catholic bishop of Martinique. That's a French island in the Eastern Caribbean. So as he was going there was a storm at sea en route, and so Monseigneur Le Charpeur vowed that if he was saved, he would build a chapel to Our Lady of the Deliverance, and even consecrate his diocese to her. So it was no coincidence that on March 25th, the Feast of the Annunciation, the storm subsided. But all was not over. Just as this party arrived, there was an epidemic of yellow fever. The group took refuge in the heights of the Saint-Pierre district in a woodly and sparsely settled area at the foot of Mount Pelée. So to honor his vow, the new bishop chose to build a sanctuary there at a place called Montrouge, the Red Hill, which he said resembled his native land. On December 13th, 1851, he issued a decree establishing the diocesan shrine to Our Lady of Délivrande. From a Norman artist, he commissioned a statue of the Virgin, which reached Martinique in February 1853, and the wooden church was completed in time for the statue's coronation on December 8th, 1868. So, as time went on, the shrine grew bigger and bigger and became a true church with nave, transepts, and a bell tower, and the Holy Spirit Fathers came actually to run the shrine. In 1891, there was a terrible cyclone which devastated the town and its sanctuary and left nothing but ruins, but that statue remained intact. Thanks to the work of volunteers, a new stone church was completed in 1897. However, on August 30th, 1902, so again today, August 30th, 1902, Mont Pelée erupted. The town of Saint-Pierre was destroyed. Only 3 out of 30,000 people survived. The church of Notre Dame de la Délivrande lost its roof and all its furnishings except the statue. Rebuilding took a whole 10 years until 1912. Preceded by a novena, an annual pilgrimage commemorates the eruption and the continuing presence of Our Lady in Martinique. So again, when is the annual celebration? August 30th, right? And then our last celebration for today is Madonna delle Grazie in Cavaliere Maggiore in Cuneo in Italy. So what happened? According to a tradition, in the year 1452, the entire city of Cavaliere Maggiore was devastated by the plague and war, and so they prayed to God even with public prayers. The people got together and prayed together. So it was on the morning of August 30th, 1452, that Our Lady appeared to a deaf-mute peasant by the name of Vincenzo Bongianino in a field away from the city center. After having restored his speech and his hearing, the Blessed Virgin gave him a manuscript written in gold letters telling him to return to the city and to give this manuscript to the first person he encounters, right? Which is a little weird, but Bongianino encountered Giorgio Tarditi, who was actually the mayor of the town, who read the letter and understood what Our Lady wanted, because it was very clearly expressed, which was a consecration of a church dedicated to her. Rapidly, when a second pestilence came, a second plague in 1598, the mayors got together and they entrusted the city again to Our Lady of Graces. And again, they made a public vow to construct a portico and an atrium in front of the shrine. So obviously they had already built a shrine to fulfill that first vow. But to get freed from the second plague, they made a vow again to build the portico and an atrium in front of the church, and to provide all the best that was necessary, right? So it's very beautiful. There's the sanctuary has paintings that show the apparition of Our Lady to Vincenzo Bongianino, and the part where he gives the manuscript to the mayor, right? So the shrine actually, they said it's built on the remains of an old church, and there's a fresco with like a votive shrine, which is where the miracle took place, right? And it was transferred there and above the main altar on August 21st, 1803. So again, that's the Madonna della Grazia in Cavaliere Maggiore in Cuneo, Italy. And that's what we're celebrating today in the Marian world on August 30th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we continue with Meditation 70, entitled Mater Dolorosa, the Sorrowful Mother. And now we'll consider the second point, human and natural suffering. In all those sufferings of Mary, consider also their natural and human side. The measure of suffering is the intensity of love. We are pained to quit or lose what we love. The greater the love, the greater the sorrow. With this measuring rod, try to gauge the sorrows of Mary. Hers was the suffering of a mother, and that should tell you all. A mother's love is the most pure, the most noble, the most selfless on earth. That is why God wanted us to have only one mother. She alone suffices to fill the whole of our life with an ineffable fondling, with a warm kiss, with a satisfying love that sets our heart at peace. How great is the love of a mother! And then how great would Our Lady love her Son? God has placed in her heart all the tenderness of all the mothers, so that she should worthily love her Son. Nothing else was worthy of the Son of God, who wanted to be called the Son of Man par excellence. What then would be her abysmal sorrow on the occasion of the loss of her Son? Think also that the son she had lost was her only son. She had no other with whom to console herself. And that only son was the best of all, the most loving, as no other man ever loved. On the other hand, he was also the most innocent, and yet she was losing him as though he were a criminal. It was not a sickness, a fortuitous accident that snatched him away from her. It was a betrayal, an ingratitude. It was a horrible injustice that reaped his young life in the midst of the most excruciating tortures and in her very presence. Think how intimate was the union which prevailed between Jesus and Mary. Her Son was verily her life, her all. This will help you to realize the enormous sorrow of the mother. Moreover, it is true that sensibility has different degrees, that it varies from man to man, and that the greater the sensibility, the more fierce is the suffering. And Mary, having such a perfect organism, and therefore so extraordinarily sensitive, was of such an exquisite sensibility. How great, then, would her sorrow be when confronted with such ingratitude, with such injustice? Ponder over these points, and you will feel like applying to Our Lady those words of Jeremiah. Look and see whether there is any suffering comparable to mine.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.